What's up guys, Mischief Magus here. So, we have finally concluded the 7 planets. Remember, there's only 7. I'm not going to list them because I've said it countless times. This video, I want to concentrate on the houses as I had promised I would do. Originally, I wanted to do all 12 of them just in a wham bam thank you ma'am kind of way, but I know that there are a lot of confused ideas about what all of the houses represent, why they represent those things, and a lot of people think it's clever and cute to kind of attribute modern considerations to what the houses are. Do not do this. Seriously, you're fucking up an ancient, old-time trusted process. God. There's so much stuff I want to say about it, but I'm not going to because it's just pointless. Just follow what I'm saying and you'll be fine. Anyway, the reason why I'm doing this, I talked about the planets, pretty self-explanatory since the planets are the main players in astrological magic. However, houses also play a huge part, and I'm going to get to that a little bit later in this video. Depending on where you place a planet, it can give it a lot of power or not a lot of power, or it can ruin it. For example, if you have any planets in the 12th, 8th, or 6th houses, they are going to be not happy, mainly because these houses do not aspect the ascendant. Now, why is that important? Why does it seem to matter about the ascendant? Well, the ascendant is the birth and life of the thing. If the life of the thing doesn't see a particular thing related to existence, do you think it's a good thing? I'll give you an example. The 9th house trines the ascendant. It sees the ascendant. If something sees the ascendant, it is naturally good. Because as we all know, because we are all professionals of astrology, and we have our little pictures on our damn walls, and we charge $200 an hour or whatever, we know that if you have a trine aspect, it's easy and harmonious. Same thing with the sextile, but it's a little weaker. However, the opposite end of the spectrum, oppositions are extremely aggressive and hostile. They are two bodies colliding head on because they're literally, it's like you're looking at like a boxer across the ring. That's opposition. Or if it's square, you're like, in a square, you're like, oh, I don't know if I could really deal with this guy. So I don't know. It's like a weaker opposition, but it's not directly opposed them. This is why it was good. This is why a house that trines the ascendant is good, because it is harmonious, it sees the ascendant, and everyone's happy. The end. We can write the book and sign our farewells and everything, and the end. And we're great. But it doesn't always work like that, because people kick and scream about the way how things work, and it's just... That's another reason why if someone has a really powerful 7th house, it could spell trouble for the native, because it is opposing the ascendant. It is opposing. And remember what we said about the boxers in the ring. You know what I mean? It's other people. I mean, if you want powerful other people in your life, great. But personally, I'd want to fortify my own skin. Just saying, for all those would-be do-gooder magical mages out there. The reason I go on rants about this stuff is because the houses are, in and of themselves, completely complex. Once you start reading about it, it makes a little bit of sense. But you have to really understand why the ancients split it up into 12 quadrants. I'm not going to get into that there. I know I say, you know, you really should, but we're here for magic, so we're doing magic, and this is actually one of the steps for it. So, if you look at a chart, it has a half above the earth and a half under the earth. So 1 through 6 are under the earth, 7 through 12 are above the earth. I'm just telling you this before we get into it because I kind of figure it's necessary. The stuff that's above the horizon in 12 through 7, they'll have more force and they will be more openly expressed. Stuff that is under the horizon will be inwardly expressed, and it will probably be more private for the native. That is what I have read in my ancient books, and that is what I'm sticking to. For this video, This is the first of three. I want to talk about the angles, not the angels for people who can't spell. The angles are the first house, which is the ascendant, the 10th house, which is the midheaven, the 7th house, which is the descendant, and the 4th house, which is the angle under the earth. Just call it that. I can't spell it. I can't pronounce it. Or you can call it the IC, whatever. ASC, DC, MC. MC Hammer. Just kidding. So those are the four. They are the strongest houses in the entire wheel. Bar none. End of story. Goodbye, the end. The reason for this is because the ancients believed that at these spaces, these four places covered really important aspects of life. The first house covers you. The 10th house covers, everyone knows this, everyone should know this, or everyone might, if you don't, whatever. First house covers you, 10th house covers your career or what you are seen as and what you're remembered as. Your ambitions, your goals, stuff like that. Your job, it's huge. The descendant is the other. This could be enemies, open enemies that you know. It could be partnerships, business partnerships. It can be wars, and it can be relationships and marriages. You, me. Ascendant, descendant. That's why the descendant opposes the ascendant, and that's why it's in opposition, and that's why it's a little aggressive. The 4th house represents family, your ancestry, your roots, stuff that goes way back, and it is also known as the end of things. Funny thing about the 7th house, by the way, it's known as the gate of death. So, kind of makes sense. I want to read something to you here, and I'm saying this because I wanted to kind of bring you up to speed with this. So, what I'm going to be reading from is from Deb Holding's Temples of the Sky book. It is awesome. I love this book. I read it for fun sometimes because I'm not as smart as I should be, and it's interesting because there are so many people kicking and screaming about what each house represents, and I want to stop it because there are things that things represent and there are things that they do not. Stop arguing amongst yourselves and just fucking read the old books. Anyway, the Egyptians were strong believers in reincarnation and considered physical death to be merely a transformative process within the ongoing cycle of life. They perceived the sun's daily passage as a journey by which the sun god passed through the cycle of death and rebirth each day, dying in the evening at sunset to be born anew each morning at sunrise. Just as the visible death of the sun, moon, and stars occurred as they fell under the horizon in the west, the Egyptians also believed that when the soul left the body upon the human death, that too was pulled towards the western horizon and followed the course of the stars. Consequently, the western horizon assumed a mythological connection with all aspects of death, decline, weakness, and retreat. The west was known as something something, meaning the place of rest, death, or the portal to something, I don't know. And in reflection of this belief, nearly all of the pyramids and royal tombs are located on the Nile's western bank. Conversely, the east was associated with beginnings and the renewal of life force. Ancient Egyptian illustrations of the sun's passage across the sky frequently depict the sun god aging as the day wears on, or traveling in different boats and taking the form of different gods for each part of the journey. And then they list some gods in there. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of read that to you because that was where they got these ideas from. When the sun is born on the eastern horizon, it is renewed. It's a new day. And we will get into that when it comes to planetary days and planetary hours. Believe it or not, everything I'm telling you has its significance. I don't waste my breath speaking in front of a camera to people, hopefully hundreds of thousands of people at some point, just so that I can talk to myself or hear myself talk. This stuff's super important, guys. Everything I say, I pick. Before I go on rambling again, the ancients perceived the sun as literally living throughout the day. It's like it's a person, and it begins its life anew in the east, and at the highest point, the highest fucking point you can get in the sky, That was the midheaven. That's the midheaven. That is called culmination. It is reaching the highest point that you can get. Remember that, because we're going to use it. As it descends and it falls, literally, in the sky, it will go toward the gate of death, or the seventh house. After the seventh house, it passes across the horizon, and it dies. Because we can't see it anymore. And it becomes nighttime. In a perfect world, we see the moon come up and take the sun's place, rules the night, and everyone's happy. Hint, nobody's ever happy all the time. I don't know, I'm just being snarky. Anyway, there's a lot of superstition that goes along with it, and I think it's pretty fascinating. It says here churchyards were located on the south or east of the church, with only such people as criminals or unbaptized children buried on the north side. This lay in the shadow of the church, so was considered to be a place of easy access to darker spirits. I literally just read that and I had no idea. People were superstitious about this stuff back in the day. So, I'm going to go through the 4 angles as quickly as I can to make sure that the video is not over 30 minutes long. I'm going to start with the lower midheaven, which is the 4th house. And remember, I'm pretty much just reading from this at this point because I think it's easier for you to access, and I wouldn't expect you to read this book because good luck finding it. So the lower midheaven, the IC, the 4th house angle, is called the underworld. But in the old days, it wasn't known as hell, just like the 7th house was the gate to death. Did I say the gate to hell? It's the gate to death. The Egyptians saw death not as an end to life, but as a transitory stage within it, a period of purgance, rest, and renewal. In ancient philosophy, the lower depths represented the spiritual source, the universal parent from which we emerge and ultimately return. That goes back to what I said about the roots, the foundation of all things. Some people used to think that Saturn's joy was in the 4th house because of this. And interestingly enough, if you work with plants, Saturn rules the root part of plants, as well as other plants like hemlock and nightshade. Don't play with those when you do Saturn rituals. You'll die. That's what killed... What did it kill? It killed some old guy back in the Roman era. I'm really bad with history. Manilius wrote that it controls the foundation of all things and symbolizes the deepest region of the underworld. What's your religion down there? Worshipping Satan. No, that's not it. That's funny. It indicates all that originates from, belongs to, or is located in the bowels of the earth. Thus, it is associated with minerals and the natural resources of the earth, such as coal, ores, and oil. Also mining of these resources. The 4th house being an extension of the lower depths and that which is hidden in the earth, acquired astrological rulership over graves, buried treasure, wealth from hidden sources, and also symbolized the act of drowning as well as the means by which we explore the past or the hidden roots of the present. It is, of course, the underworld itself, with all its attendant associations of weakness, death, the aged or very young. In classical times, it represented the parents. In the medieval period, it represented specifically the father through whom the genealogical line is traced. Generally, it is connected with ancestry, grandparents, family property, ancestral wealth, and land. As an ancient symbolism, it is the return to the source and the beginning and end of life, the final conclusion, but also the seed of all future potential. This is the kind of stuff that astrology is meant to be. I know you guys have all your different ways of doing stuff, but this is the right way of doing it. I am not a genius, but I love this stuff. You get something, what does this represent? Oh, it represents this, 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 and this. Done! That's it. All right, pack up, guys. Game over. Let's go home. Cool. The 4th house represents everything that you come from. So when you look at your house, when you look at your birth chart, you see who rules the 4th house. That's the condition of your origin. My 4th house ruler is Mercury, and because it's in Gemini. And funny enough, my dad is a brilliant chemist. I mean, brilliant. And it's just interesting. I know that some people could peck that up to, well, coincidence. There are no coincidences in this stuff. I would go over a lot of the other traditional associations. There's Manilius, Firmicus, Alberuni, William Lilly, and then modern. Oh, here you go. I may as well humor you. For modernists, it symbolizes the beginning of end of life. Parents, the mother, some say. Home, houses, land, private life, buried emotions. No, not buried emotions. Well, maybe, but I don't think so. And I think it's a waste of time. Because you want to focus on your life now. If you want to focus on what the world inside your head, great. But you got a world out here to worry about. Okay? The ascendant. The strongest bloody house in the sky. Bar none. You can't hack your way out of this. Ascendant, 10th house, 7th house, 4th house. That's the order of magnitude of strength within the angles. The angles are top tier, but then in that tier, 1, 10, 7, 4. That's what the order goes in terms of strength for the angles. First house is always strongest. Always strongest. If you have anything in the first house and it's good, well, congratulations. Not a lot of people get that stuff. The ascendant signifies the point of life because as the sun rises here each morning, it distributes its life-giving properties of warmth and light to the world. Traditional descriptions of the ascendant claim it represents life, formation of character, and appearance. It signifies our emergence into the world, and since life requires a body to inhabit, this is what the ascendant describes. It is our appearance and the outer expression of our essential being, the two bound together through the principles of oh god, I can't spell that, by which the physical form and facial features are considered revealing of character. So, yes, I know I look like Seth Rogen. I get it. I totally get it. But, my ascendant ruler, just as an example, is Aquarius, and who's ruled by Saturn. This, I mentioned it in another video. It's called, like, I'm Not Seth Rogen or something. But the way how your ascendant works is, depending on the condition of the planet that it rules, you could be, that's how your body's going to look. That's what you're going to look like, or what it's going to rule strongly. Personally, I think apparently I kind of look old, and I don't like that. But, you know, you kind of grow into it. Some people have said I look Jewish, and coincidentally, Saturn rules the Jews. I'm not saying that's a be-all, end-all for everything. If you're a Pisces or whatever ascendant, I mean, and you're Jewish, well, I don't know what to tell you, and I don't have time to look at your chart. But maybe if you want, I can look at it. But just as an example, I thought that was interesting. That's how the ascendant works. Traditionally, it rules, as I had just said, the fortunes of... Oh, I didn't say this. Traditionally, it rules life and formation of character, the early years and education, the fortunes of children and the prayers of parents, the station to which men are born, profession, the success of enterprises. This is the joy of Mercury, which means if Mercury's here, he gets a lot of activity to do what he wants, blah, 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 gets to talk, blah, 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 great. That was Manilius. There's other ones. Alberuni says that it rules the soul, life, and length of life, education, and the native land. Lilly, William Lilly, who also wrote Christian Astrology, awesome source, pretty hard to read. He rules life, health, and vitality, form and shape of the body. Super cool. If you have a good ascendant ruler, you're in good shape. The midheaven. As the sun approaches the midheaven, it attains its maximum strength and magnificence of radiation. Correspondingly, the 10th house signifies the status, reputation, and position in life to which we aspire. Manilius called it the citadel of the sky and referred to it as the temple of glory, distinction, honor, and the consummation of success. He says, "Here comes applause, splendor, and every form of popular favor, hence the power to dispense justice in the courts, to bring the world under the rule of law, to make alliances with foreign nations or on one's own terms, and to win fame relative to one's station." Alright, I'm going to tell you right now, 2 places you should focus on when you make your talisman. The ascendant angle, and the 10th house angle. You can put them on the 7th and 4th house angles, but I recommend the 1st and the 10th because that's going to give you the strongest power. If you can. If you can't, and you probably won't, it's frustrating as hell, well, better luck next time. If you put a planet that you want to make a talisman out of on the ascendant, you're birthing the damn thing. It's literally coming into being from the ascendant. And as we had just mentioned about what the ascendant rules, that gives it a lot of power. Now, why does this happen? I don't know, but this is what it does. So that's called rising. If it's on the ascendant angle, you can stuff it in the house itself. Do it on the angles, okay? Do it on the angles. Then you can put it on the 10th house angle, which is called the midheaven, as I had already mentioned. And this is called culminating, as I had mentioned before. Rising, culminating. If you can, it's really hard. It takes Batman level prep to make good talismans. It's ridiculous. 10th house associations traditionally. Glory, distinction, honors, popular favor, power, the rule of law and justice in the courts. Alliances with foreign nations. Fame relative to one's station. Consummation of success. Wedlock. The temple of Venus. Disagree. But this is Manilius, and he was born like back in 4000 BC or something, so I don't know. Lily, let's go back to Lily, because I like him. Honor, dignity, royalty, commanders, judges, authority, profession, and mothers. Just as the 4th house rules fathers, the 10th house rules mothers. Very interesting. So, as we get on that, let's go to the descendant, the 7th house. With the movement of the sun towards the descendant, Egyptian philosophy recognized a weakening of vitality, a loss of power, death, or the necessity for retreat. The lack of personal strength associated with the descendant gave it a reputation as a hostile angle, where one is susceptible to the influence of malign events and enemies. Manilius linked it with the consummation of affairs and the closing years of life because the sun died here every sunset. He says, "It speeds the falling sky beneath the earth and buries the stars. Wonder not if it is called the portal of somber Pluto, and keeps control over the end of life and death's firm bolted door. Here dies the very light of day, which the ground beneath steals away from the world and locks up captive in the dungeon of night." Just because I said Pluto doesn't mean we're going to use him. Don't even get any ideas. As the ascendant is symbolic of light and represents white or pale colors, the loss of light at the descendant caused this house to be associated with black or very, very dark colors. So, I mean, I kind of know a little bit about the 7th house, but not as much as I should. But generally, it symbolizes war, open enemies, other people, and a loss of power for the individual. I have a really busy 7th house in my chart, which is really stupid because, you couldn't give me something else somewhere that was, not giving power to everyone else, but of course not. That's just how it works. 7th house, and be very mindful of this, it represents open enemies. I'm pretty sure some of you are going to hate me, so I'm just throwing that out there. Whatever, can't do anything about it. But it also represents marriages, and that's why it was so powerful, as it represents. It's like a clone of the ascendant, except the complete opposite, and it's you, ascendant. You, descendant. Sorry. You opposed. Remember that boxer in the ring. I think that's helpful. I think that's helpful to remember. 2 people facing off. Finally, there is... Oh, I talked about all of them. Okay. Well, I guess I'll read some more. Okay. For the 7th house, since this is apparently the last one, because I forgot we did the 4th house. The signification of the 7th house for opponents, and therefore the other, both in love and war, is partly explained by its diametrical aspect to the ascendant. However, the symbolic influence of the direction west is an integral element of this. The west is generally perceived as hostile or weakening through its association with darkness, and has a very ancient signification related to those who confront us. Under Pythagorean philosophy, which takes its origin from concepts employed by the ancient Mesopotamians and Egyptians, the orientation right is linked to the east, and left is linked to the west. Throughout Scripture and in all the world philosophies, the symbolic use of the right or the east is taken to imply qualities that are beneficial, strong, righteous, direct, open, familiar, and fixed upon the self, whereas the left is just about the opposite. But it also is where you give power to others, which sucks. It's hard, but it's powerful. And it originates a sense of union, partnership, and committal. as seen in this house's association with marriage, but also implying a weakened sense of self and an indication of potentially harmful, indirect, obscure, sinister, or unfamiliar energy. Similarly, the East is noted as masculine and diurnal, while the West is feminine and nocturnal. Hence, masculine planets are said to be strengthened in the eastern areas of the chart, and the feminine planets rejoice in the western quadrants. In particular, references are found to the moon being strongly dignified in the descendant and debilitated in the ascendant. The rules of electional astrology still dictate that it is unfortunate to place the moon in the ascendant when electing the best time to start new ventures. Although we associate partners of any gender with the 7th house in contemporary astrology, initially the 7th house was mainly attributed to the female and was used to signify women in general. There's a lot of stuff that people don't talk about nowadays, and I mean, I miss a lot of it too. Like I said, if you want to make a talisman, put it on one of the pillars of the sky that are super, super strong. I was reading, what's his name, Ben Dykes, and one of his translations talks about them being called the stakes, because they literally look like stakes, because they're, and if you look at a chart, they're just these big sticks that are poking out of the circle. They're stakes. So if you want to, you can put one on the ascendant or the culmination point. It'll make sense later. It's basically as if you're giving birth to a magical item. You do that, and then also, when you have something like that on the ascendant, it gives it power, just as it does when it's culminating. Rising and culminating. And I guess if you want to stiff it on the gate of death and the underworld, you can. But the other two, I mean, it's fine. It gives it power regardless, but I would recommend the 1st and 10th house. So that, I think, is fair for the first part of the houses. These are the angles. Next, we'll go into the succedent houses, which are the anciently known as the falling away houses. I can't remember. Angular, super strong. Succedent, normal. Cadent, super weak. Alright guys, if you have any questions or you have any suggestions for making videos from me, let me know. I'll make them. Or at least I'll argue why I am or why I'm not or why I will. Alright, peace.